I would like to conclude by making some very brief comments on on the responsibilities of the Indian state in relation to the above issue, the issue of genocide. But firstly, I should point out that the ideologies and moral leadership that have been born in India are now undeniably globalized, and they're accepted by the peoples of the world as their own. So, for example, the world has taken as its own the great Indian leaders in history, including the Mahatma Gandhi, as well as the many well-known religious spiritual leaders, Sri Aurobindo and Jiddu Krishnamurti, and of course many others, and this will continue. Right? And I am, of course, like every other Tamil in the world, globally, grateful to the Indian government that they have recognized Tamil as a classical language. It's the first language to gain such recognition in India. And of course, the Tamil culture in India has also contributed to the world, not only in our classical literature, but also in our code of ethics via the Tirukkural and the works of Avayar. And so one has to acknowledge the historical contribution. However, while acknowledging India's role of moral leadership, the need of the hour is leadership in politics today. The need of the hour is execution. And the leadership in politics is judged by execution and results. And so with respect to Tamil genocide, one needs to look at what is effective execution and what are the results that one would expect. And there are 3 points to make of this. The first point is that India is a signatory to the UN Convention on Genocide, which means that it has an obligation, a treaty obligation, to prevent and punish genocide. So it had a treaty obligation to prevent what happened in 2009, and it now has a treaty obligation to punish. India signed the convention in 1949. Secondly, India is a regional power in South Asia. So in addition to the Genocide Convention, you have also our responsibility to protect the R2P, and India has a role as the nearest regional power with respect to R2P. Also with respect to a wider set of crimes against humanity, ethnic cleansing, war crimes, the R2P protocol would look, of course, for the regional power to take some responsibility. Okay. Thirdly and importantly, of course, India has pioneered the non-aligned movement, which is founded on principles of racial equality, sovereignty of peoples, opposition to neo-colonialism, etc. The non-aligned movement, for example, opposed apartheid in South Africa on precisely those grounds of racial inequality. So it would be consistent. It would be consistent for India to oppose racism, and particularly such extreme forms of racist violence as ethnic cleansing and genocide, much closer to home. And I look forward to progress in that. Right? For all of the reasons I've listed, I look forward to India's active implementation of the Genocide Convention, to which it is the signatory. Right? And by that I mean, of course, the implementation also with respect to the Tamils, to the genocide of the Tamils. And I look forward to seeing progress on the obligation to punish as well, that is arising out of that treaty. Right? But in closing, I want to also move away from the role of government and talk to you more informally as a student body. Okay? The students of today are the leaders of tomorrow. And it is in your hands to bring about the change that we need to counteract the genocide that's going on next door. The Tamil diaspora is committed to bringing about a people's economic sanction, for example. And I would invite you to join hands with the Tamil diaspora, with the global Tamil diaspora, to work, for example, with groups in the US, such as USTPAC or pearlaction.org, to work towards the economic sanction aspect of this. So India, along with China, will be an increasingly important trade partner for Sri Lanka, in tourism, for example. And also, the other point to note is not just the trade between India and Sri Lanka, but also the fact that many multinationals, particularly Microsoft, for example, a lot of fashion retailers, are seeing India as the next big market. So that US multinationals and global multinationals will be looking at the viewpoint that's taken by Indian students, the student body, the middle class body in India. And so, for example, in the US, there is a boycott, economic boycott of Gap, jeans manufacturer, jeans retailer, the Gap chain. And I think those kinds of chains, multinationals, would be sensitive to Indian public opinion, right? And last, and absolutely not least, possibly the most important, is the internet presence. Okay, your internet presence is not to be underestimated. The Indian student body are important citizens of the online world. So I think that is one of the most important areas where public opinion can be influenced. So if I have a single message, it is this: don't underestimate the importance of your position and the power that is in your hands through activism. Thank you, and vanakkam.